It's 11:07 in WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast, live from what's left of Boston after a mighty hurricane, which wasn't a hurricane. Uh, Here's Charles Moskowitz. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So, I love your background.
Well, this used to be 3 miles from the seashore. And then after the hurricane, this is what we have now. all kidding aside, up here in Boston, they talk and talk and talk about the weather like there's nothing else going on. And in fact, everybody was dramatically over prepared. And, it went through Rhode Island, I guess, and went through the middle of the state. And they had, the hurricane and tornadoes and everything else. And the Cape, which was supposed to be miserable, didn't even the storm surge wasn't really a great deal. So,
I was watching the Weather Channel and they're talking about this huge storm surge, and the surf was like maybe a foot and a half.
yeah.
You've got to be kidding.
Well, but they still, I was supposed to be in New York for a wedding on Saturday, and they had canceled the New London to Orient Point ferries, and there were no ferries running between the mainland and what do you call it, Nantucket or the Vineyard, and none on Sunday either. So I was just as glad I didn't go.
Yeah, it's our old neck of the woods near Bristol, Connecticut, up in the hills in Burlington, and like Avon, Simsbury, and places like that. Boy, they got tons of rain.
Yeah, and they got tons of rain from the last storm too, because I was down in Hamden on Wednesday night, and when I came back, I drove on Thursday morning going back. I started out, it wasn't raining. I drove into the back of that storm and then rode with it literally for 2.5 hours, and it was miserable. I mean, I was driving on the Mass Pike with my blinkers on and going 40-45 miles an hour because I was afraid to pull over and stop because I didn't think anybody'd see me. So there you go.
Yeah. This is definitely affecting the inland areas more than the beach areas, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it seems to be coming back again, and it's supposed to be northwest of Boston this time. So Newburyport, Haverhill, that whole area.
Sure. Wow.
In any event, all that said, market's a little crazy these days. I don't really get it. This political stuff and the jamming through of what looks like a 5.2, $5.3 trillion program is, I think in the long run is really a problem. You can't take that kind of money and put it into a $20 trillion economy and not see some pretty extreme inflation. And besides the inflation, you also are going to continue to see these huge deficits. And the question becomes, what can the Fed really do about it? Well, it can't really do a lot about it. They can't just keep on buying and buying and buying more of our bonds. And we're going to have to issue more bonds, many, many more bonds in order to finance. I mean, the debt to the GDP is at just about its highest level ever. I mean, we're talking about 1-to-1 GDP to debt. And that's really a problem. The deficit is a problem, but it's only about a quarter of GDP. These are the equivalents of World War II levels of debt and deficits. And
and I feel bad for like your grandkids and my grandchildren. And it's like, because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to pay for this thing long after we're gone.
Yeah, we're going to get, I'm going to guess that, we old people are going to get a raise in Social Security this year based on the CPI and inflation. So, it's like going out with my grandparents, with my grandkids and asking them how much cash they have on them. I could use it because that's what we're doing.
Sure.
And it's really getting out of hand.
No doubt about it. Well, we have our special guest is with us.
Yes, we do. It's Pierre Leveille of Deep South. And Deep South is a resource company. And in fact, it's a copper mining company, something that I've had some dealings with. It's a little bit different than the last one that I was involved in, since that one was in Milford, Utah. These guys have a mine that they are working in Southwest Africa, Namibia, in fact. And I'll let Peter tell you, pardon me, Peter, I'll let Pierre tell you the story, and we can get into some of the nuts and bolts of it. But, the main focus right now is alternative energies and electric vehicles. And copper is a major portion of that, both in the vehicles themselves, as well as in the charging stations that are being built and going up everywhere. And so, Pierre, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the people about our company?
Yeah, welcome aboard, Pierre.
Yeah, good morning, Carol and Charles. I'm very happy to be with you guys.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself to get things going here, and then your company as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
First, I'm not a technical guy not a scientific on the exploration and mining side. My background is finance. I'm an ex-stockbroker and investment banker, but I ended up doing quite a lot of financing for the exploration and mining industry up to the mid-90s, where I decided to take over the management of a small company that was having a project in Africa. And the idea was to build a portfolio of projects in Africa. I was having a pretty extensive network of South African investors when I was a stockbroker. So I started there to look at some deals, and the deals that I've started making in 1996 were in Namibia. First, we have taken over on a small diamond mine that was operating, and we've done quite good profits with that for a certain number of years before we sell back the project. And then after that, we acquired in private as a Namibian private company the rights on the Hybe copper project that was in 2004 in the south of Namibia. Namibia is a very good country to invest in, is considered as one of the best in Africa. It's pretty quiet. It's a very good democracy. Its justice system is very independent from the political side. So it's in general a pretty good country to invest in. I'm there since 25 years. I have a very good network, and Deep South is a new label, not new, but we listed the company in 2016 through a reverse takeover from existing listed company on the TSX Venture. That was the Hybe Copper project that brought us there, because we were having at the time a partnership with Tech Resources that lasted between 2011 and 2017. And we were following the expenditure. We were holding 30% of the project at that time. Teck was holding 70%. And we were in need of cash, so that's why we did that RTO and got the company listed. In 2017, Teck came to us and told us that there was a lot of changes in their company, and Africa was not their focus anymore. They were having only one project in the south of Africa. Most of their projects are all the western edges of the Americas. So, and they were feeling pressure from the Ministry of Mines to do some development on the project, not only pure exploration. So we then concluded a deal with them at that time whereby we took over their share in the project, and then Deep South was holding and still holds 100% of the project. And Teck was becoming our largest shareholder. And Teck is still our largest shareholder with 16% of the company. So that's the story about Deep South and myself. I can give you a little bit of background on that project also, which is the important asset we have in the company.
I think that's fascinating that you talk a little bit about Namibia. It's a country you don't hear much about,
Nope.
but it is very interesting that they are as stable as they are.
Yeah.
So tell us about Deep South then, as you kind of amalgamated this whole thing and have got it all up and running, 4 years now?
Yes, but it's not a mine in production. It's still an exploration project in development. And we were starting a feasibility study recently that would have brought us near the decision of mine construction. So we were not so far of potentially having a mine in production, but it's I'll give you a little bit more background about that a little bit later. Originally, Deep South was called Deep South Mining Company, and it was a Namibian company founded by Namibian shareholders and myself. I was the only foreign shareholder in the company. And we acquired the rights on that project directly from the Ministry of Mines of Namibia. And the first thing we did a joint venture with a company listed on the AIM in London. That lasted for about 3 years, but they didn't spend a lot of money on the project because they went bankrupt and they disappeared. So then after that, in 2008, we signed a deal, a joint venture agreement with Teck Resources, and to develop the project. And the option with Teck was that they were able to acquire 70% of the project if they were spending 2.7 million Canadian. So at that time, about 2.3 million US, which they did. And they exercised their option in 2011. So from 2011 to 2017, they were holding 70% of the project. And they have spent a little bit in excess of $5 million. Of course, there's a part of that 30% that was supported by Deep South. Then Deep South Mining became Deep South Resources through that RTO and listing on the TSX Venture. Now, it's important to keep in mind that our original shareholders, Namibian shareholders, were prominent people in the country, and they're still on board with us. Our chairman was the chairman of Deep South Mining, is still the chairman of Deep South Resources, John Aquanier, retired lawyer, well involved in the Namibian society, well connected on the political side also. He was named at one point by the president of the country as chairman of the National Airport Corporation. He was also, he is still a director of Areva Namibia, which is a subsidiary of Areva, which is the largest uranium company in the world. And they have a huge project in Namibia. John is also at the moment has been named by the president to be an advisor on what they call land resettlement committee, which is buying land from farmers and redistributing that land to some Namibian disadvantaged people. And as such, he is the most senior advisor of the Minister of Agriculture in Namibia. So that's the type of background Namibian people we have around us. Ali Ngula was recently joined our board of directors, is a chartered accountant, was on the board for many years, on the board of the Bank of Namibia, which is the Reserve Bank of Namibia. She was also chairing the audit and risk committee of the bank. She was also on the board of Racing Uranium, which is a subsidiary of Rio Tinto, and so on. You know, she's a well placed and well-renowned chartered accountant in Namibia. So that's the type of people that we have around that were shareholders and are still shareholders in the company.
You know, you look at a lot of, as Charles could tell you, tons of red tape that, you know, you'd have if you were to do anything like this in the United States. What about the Namibian government? Are they business friendly down there?
Yeah, they are. We have a problem at the moment. I'll explain the problem. But yes, they are. In general, it's a little bit the same that what we will have in Canada or United States. A little bit less red tape, though, but it's the same type of procedure. You know, you cannot act politically speaking all the time when you want to have something. If you want to do it, you do lobbying like it's done in North America. You know, it's like as opposed to countries like DRC or Angola, where you knock at the office of the president or the prime minister if you want to do something, and things will happen. You know, it's like you don't see that in Namibia. It's a very well organized country. You have to keep in mind also that it has inherited from all the infrastructure and financial system of South Africa, and for a long period of time, South Africa was was in the top 10 economies in the world. It's still on the top 20s. So it's neighboring countries, and the banks are all South African, but they have their Namibian subsidiaries, insurance companies, all the same, fund managers also. It's like so it's well organized. It's easy to do business in Namibia.
And for folks who want to take a look at your company, the website is deepsouthresources.com. Deepsouthresources.com.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, the project, I think it's important to have a good idea of the project. We talk here of a project a deposit that is a very large deposit, low grade. It's what we call a porphyry deposit. It's the same type of the geology that you find in the Andes and the Rockies on the western edge of Americas. But the main difference is that these are pretty young. They're in general younger than 200 million years old. The ones that we have in Namibia, the one that we have in Namibia is 1.8 billion years old. It's probably the oldest porphyry in the world. And as such, it has seen quite a lot of transformation over time. That makes it different from the typical porphyry you find on the western edge of Americas. So what we have there, it's a project that has been drilled substantially in the past, 66,000 meters of drilling. There was a lot of work done on metallurgy side, there was even a feasibility study done in the mid-90s. And because it's a very large tonnage, we're talking of 850 million tons of ore at 0.31% copper. That's the average grade. It's a large tonnage, low grade deposit. Because of the grade, and what we know is that we can probably double that tonnage. So we have already identified 5 billion pounds of copper in the ground. And we think we can double that. But at a low grade like this, that was creating problems for many, at a certain period of time in the history, because technologies were not friendly enough or cheaper enough to mine lower grade like this. So you had Rio Tinto drill that project in the mid 70s that have walked away of the project because they were also having a uranium project in Namibia, the Racing Uranium, which is the 5th largest uranium mine in the world at that time. It's still in production and making money, so their decision was certainly the good one. But they left the project after 45,000 meters of drilling because the grade was a bit low, and with the classical route of extracting the metal, which is grinding, milling, roast leaching, flotation, the cost of operation is too high and the capex is very high. So after all these years, there was other companies like Teck that came in the picture, look at the project. They like the project a lot because big companies are, they like large tonnage, but they were still having that situation with the low grade. And when we took over the project from Teck, we look at it from the angle of saying, okay, we have a project that has a large tonnage, low grade. So two questions: can we improve the grade? And can we find a technology to extract the metal at low capital investment and low operation cost? If we find that, we have a project. We looked at all the metallurgy and technology tests that have been done over the years to find a technology called bio heap leaching that was tested by Mintech from South Africa, which is a leader in bio leaching in the world. And the results were very good. It was going up to 96% recovery of copper. So that's very, very high. In small, test, it was not very large test. So we decided to do a first preliminary economic assessment on the project to see if we were using that compared to other technologies, what kind of result would we, what kind of economics could we develop? And we came out with some very stunning numbers, very important, very good economic numbers. So we decided then to do our own test with a larger tonnage. We have tested 1 million ton of material with Mintech, and we were again having some recovery up to 96%. And with a sustainable recovery of 80 to 82%, which is pretty good. And then we did a new an upgraded preliminary economic assessment, which was showing that with a price of copper of $3 per pound, an NPV of 950 million US, so near 1 billion, and an IRR of 30% after tax. So that was extremely good. And then the price of copper has started mounting up, and it's over $4 today. If you go at $4, you will see that we have an NPV of 1.6 billion US with an IRR after tax of 42%. So it's extremely good. And what you can see there is that our capex our market cap at the time was about $20 million Canadian. So let's say 15 million US. Okay. Normally, we should trade about 5% of the NPV in a situation like this. So we knew at that time that we were having another situation to look at, was improving the grades. So we look at all the drilling that was done in the past, and we realized that there was some patches of high grade here and there, but they were originated from what we call shear zones and faulting, and most of them are vertical or sub-vertical. And most of the drilling was done widely spaced 150 meter vertical. So they were missing quite a lot of that material that was higher grade. When we drill in angle, suddenly we see the grades pumping up. So that's what we did this year. We have started drilling incline holes in the higher grade area, and we were seeing the grades, the results were pretty good. We were having between 0.40% and 1% of high grade materials. So that was leading us to think we were able to improve the grade. So improving the grade and have the right technology to extract the metal was leading us to start the feasibility study immediately to go to develop that project into a mine. Okay, and we're talking of a capex investment of $350 million with a cost of operation at $1.34 per pound of copper. So you have an NPV of $1.6 billion on a capex of $350 million. It's not very often. It's pretty rare. And you have an operation cost of $1.34 per pound, which is not the lowest in the world. You have the average is probably around 176, but the lowest is probably near $1. But at $1.34, we're below the average, which is quite good with a price of copper at $4. Even at $3, it was making quite a lot of money. So it's so that's the project in a nutshell. You have here a company that was having a project which is a very high NPV, very good IRR with a very low market cap, and with a potential to increase the market cap substantially via that drilling that we were doing, and of course the development of a feasibility study.
And the price of copper right now is 428. So, we're not talking about 4, we're not talking about 3, we're talking about 428. And the recent high in the copper a couple of months ago was 488.
Yes.
So we're talking about a commodity that I don't want to say it's in short supply, because there's plenty of copper mining around, both here, South America, certainly the biggest producers, are in South America. But the fact of the matter is that the demand side of the equation is really what is running this market. The electric vehicles. I mean, you see the use of electric vehicles, excuse me, from everything from electric bicycles to trucks and automobiles. I don't think that there's anybody, regardless of whether you like Tesla or Lucid or Lordstown Motors or NIO in China, it really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that this is a market that is growing astronomically. You have places like California where I think it's actually a little bit unrealistic. They're talking about 50% of all autos sold in California by 2030 have to be electric. I'm not so sure they can do that. But the writing is clearly on the wall as it relates to the amount of demand that is coming into this market.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Charles, it's very interesting you say that about just California, Charles and Pierre. One of the vice presidents of Ford was at our broadcasters convention, not last year because we didn't have one, but the year before. And he used that. That target was 2030, although he said most likely push back to 2032. Now that was a 2019 figure. So,
right.
Yeah, that's Ford's target too.
Yeah, there's another issue here, and I don't want to divert attention away from the copper, but having had some history in copper mining in Utah and Nevada, the issue that I brought up to Pierre was, well, how much gold and silver are you getting as a byproduct? And Pierre straightened me out on that pretty quickly, because the byproduct that they get is molybdenum. There's also not a lot of market for molybdenum, or let me put it a different way. There's not a lot of market exposure for companies that produce molybdenum. The biggest one was sold to China, along with the rest of the rare earth metal deals that were done by the Clintons. But molybdenum is one of the key ingredients in the making of steel alloy. So not only do you have this economic boom in electric vehicles and charging stations, we also have $5.2 trillion worth of infrastructure coming down the pike here in the US, and the demand for steel is also pretty extreme. You can see it when you look at US Steel or any of the other companies that Nucor, which is probably the biggest, best, and most blue chip of the group. But that too is a byproduct for Deep South's mining in Namibia. And that's also a commodity on the rise.
Yeah. The situation with our molybdenum is that in the past, companies were always assaying for copper, very little for moly, and very little for gold and silver. So this drilling campaign we were running this year, we were assaying for all the metals, and we were seeing very good result in moly, and we know now that moly will increase our copper equivalent grade by about 10 to 15%. So what you see at 0.31% at the moment, with the moly included, will probably be around 0.35, 0.37% copper equivalent. So that's already a good step forward, without even talking about the new grades that we're getting in copper.
Yeah.
For the gold, we were not seeing good grades coming out up to very near the end of the program. When we had to stop the program, we were starting to see interesting grade in gold. So it seems that it's erratic in the deposit, but we will continue to test. Eventually, when we get the project back, we will continue to test the gold factor, because it could add some value to the project. We're not sure yet, so it's very important to mention it.
For people who don't understand, I'm going to use an analogy here on the moly versus copper issue. And the best one that I can come up with is oil and nat gas. Natural gas is a byproduct of oil drilling. Nobody cared about it. As a matter of fact, nobody cared about it to such a great extent that the price was always cheaper. And because the price was so cheap, they didn't even bother to capture it. What they did was flare it. So they were burning off the byproduct, and because that's economically what made sense. Now, nat gas is the way that I express it in my letter and in my attitude about following it. Nat gas is a moment in time commodity. It's the bridge between the worst and dirtiest of the fossil fuels towards alternative energies. And as such, natural gas has gone from, incredibly low levels. It's trading over $4 right now. And that's here in the US. There are companies, Tellurian is one of them, Cheniere Energy is another one of them, that have built a market around taking that nat gas, making it into LNG and shipping it, because all around the world, what we have are prices that are 2, 3, 4, 5 times what they are in the US. And so, when I see that kind of action in another commodity, it shows me just how important the secondary product that we're taking out of the ground here can be, and how exciting it can be as a separate channel of income for a little company like this. I mean, let's face it, this is right now a little company in a very big market.
Yeah. One of the things I should probably mention, which is important to if we go outside of the copper market, for 1 second, is that it's important to mention that, as you know, the license on the project has not been renewed by the Ministry of Mines recently. That's in June. And we still have some ways to go to recuperate the rights on the project. That's what we're doing. The thing we have to do is to go in court to ask for a review of the minister's decision, which is already filed in court. We also have requested an interdict on the ministry to issue the license to anyone else. We're pretty convinced that the minister has not been well informed by some people inside the ministry over the project, because we have seen a Supreme Court judgment, a decision recently, it's three weeks ago, that was blaming against the ministry for a case that has a lot of similarities with ours, where the mining commissioner, which is a high high-ranked official of the ministry responsible for putting together all the information about these licenses and controlling the licenses issues, has been blamed severely to have not provided all the information to the minister to have him take an educated decision. And that's pretty similar to what we're seeing in our case at the moment. With Chamber of Mines, we will meet with them next week. They are extremely annoyed by that. There's another entity called Investment Board that is, controlled by the president's office, who are extremely annoyed by that because their mandate is to attract foreign investments. And Chamber of Mines is representing all the industry in Namibia. They're very annoyed by that. So there's a lot of pressure mounting to resolve that issue as soon as possible, and we have the right people around us to do that. So even if I was saying at the beginning that Namibia is a very good country to invest in, I still maintain that. It's not because a problem like this has happened to us that it makes Namibia is completely reversed and not good anymore. It's not the case. That's a situation that seems to have happened in the Ministry of Mines in the recent past history, and that it shows that they have something to resolve it within their ministry, and that will be the object of the minister, the prime minister or the president of the country will have to sit down and resolve that issue. And the thing is that because Deep South is a public company, it's now known all over the planet. So it does not help at all. And I know fairly well that at high level on the political scene, some people are very, very annoyed by that move, and they want to have things be back on track because it's not good for them. It's not good for foreign investments. And but I continue to be a good believer in Namibia. I've been acting there for 25 years, so I know the country extremely well. It's the first time we see something like this. So we're pretty certain, we're very confident we can get the situation back on track and make sure we can get our rights reinstituted. And what it makes is that Deep South, because we're in copper, we're looking for other copper projects. We will probably soon do a deal in another copper project that will be pretty interesting. And Deep South becomes a very low market cap with a potential when we get our rights back. You can imagine the potential with the NPV we have. It's like we're extremely undervalued at this point in time. Yes, there's a risk because it's the rights we have to fight to get them back on track. But the risk is pretty good at the price we're trading at the moment.
Yeah, Pierre, I thought that the United States had the corner on bungling for bureaucrats.
Yeah. And just, I want to make the point, what Pierre just explained, there is one group that could very well benefit from the problem, and that is new shareholders. This company spent the majority of the year above 20 cents. The high was about a quarter. It's now selling for roughly 4 cents. And if you look at the chart, you can see that the week before the license was not renewed, the stock closed 21 cents. And the week after the license was not renewed, the stock closed a dime, and the following week closed at 3.5 cents. My thesis for owning the stock is that there is very little downside, that, as Pierre has explained, Namibia is still a terrific place to do business, and it is in their best interest, as Pierre has explained. They want to bring in more and more investment. They want to bring in more and more opportunity to raise the standard of living in their country. And at 4 cents, the stock could easily, let's say that everything that Pierre said is wrong by 50%. The stock could still be 15 or 20 cents just based on the renewal of that license. I'm not saying that the license gets renewed and the stock immediately doubles or triples or quadruples or anything else. But the opportunity is there. And clearly, this is something that is a buy and hold, a buy it and put it away. You know, if you only put 2 or 3% of your portfolio into any given asset, all of a sudden, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to sit on the edge of your seat and be concerned about 0.3 of a cent change in the price in either direction. And so from the managed expectation of it, it could easily be a 5 or 10 times return over some intermediate and longer term. And frankly, you know, you don't get rich trading. You get rich buying and holding over periods of time in things that make economic sense. And clearly, Deep South is one of those opportunities. And, you know, I think that that makes the story. There are a lot of people who don't like to trade these penny stocks. There are a lot of firms that won't let you trade these penny stocks. But the fact of the matter is, most penny stocks, and when I say that, I don't mean the Morgan Stanley explanation of anything that's not listed on an exchange and anything that sells for less than $5. A lot of these penny stocks don't provide filings. They don't keep their filings current. And so there's not a lot of information available. In this case, everything is available. Everything is transparent. And you can get all of the information that you require on the website or in a report. In fact, I will be writing a report. I wanted to wait until after we had this show so that I can include that information also. But, you know, this is an outstanding, I think, an outstanding opportunity with not a lot of risk. And if you take an appropriately sized position that you don't have to worry about that 0.3 of a cent change from one day to the next, I think you'll be pretty well rewarded. And by the way, I am a shareholder.
Well, it's you know, I think as Pierre mentioned, it's a tremendous story, and you know, of course, the big meeting in Namibia is next week, Pierre, did they say how long it would take for a decision from the government at that point?
The court, the interdict, the decision on the interdict to issue the license to anyone else from the court is expected by the end of the week, this week. And then after they will give us dates for an audience for the hearing on the review of the decision of the minister. I gather that it can take about 6 to 8 months. That's what, when you look at the calendar of the court at the moment, it could be as far as that. But in the meantime, there's a certain number of other aspects that will come into play. The lobbying is very important for us, and that starts with you know, the groups I mentioned. That, you know, there will be some movements next week and the weeks after, and then I would expect that if we do everything right, there's a good chance that we have something done before Christmas or early 2022. We are also in discussion with a law firm in the States at the moment who are specialized, and they are a top firm in the world on international arbitration for commercial treaties between countries and companies. So I expect next week I will be able to announce the appointment of one of these top firms. And the mandate will be also to force opening discussion with the Prime Minister's office, and it's coming with a lot of muscle because you will see it's a very, very well-known firm, very big name. So it's then that will probably help also, speeding up these discussions. That's what we expect.
And the issue here is not the actual end of the process. The issue here is the process unfolding over time. If you wait until the information is out, you will end up paying up for the stock. On the other hand, if you buy a little bit here, let's say you decide, okay, I want to put X number of dollars into this company. You take a half or a third of that position now at this level. And if it goes down a little, you add to it. Or if it goes up, as I said, one of the main differences here is the level of transparency in this little company. And, you will see what is going on because the company tells you what's going on. We've had a lot of companies on this show over the years, and the ones that have done the most and the best as far as a return for investors have been the guys who came on, were 100% transparent, told you what they were going to do, went out and did what they told you they were going to do, and got paid handsomely for it. Both they, as directors, owners, participants, and the shareholders. I mean, that's really what the recipe for success is with these little companies. Transparency, availability of information, keeping them current with filings so that all of that is there. And, I just think this fits right into that mold.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And of course, you can look at all of the information on deepsouthresources.com. And that's www, obviously, deepsouthresources.com. Pierre, you've got a very, very interesting story here.
Thanks.
And thanks for coming on, Pierre. We really appreciate you taking the time from running this company and giving, prospective shareholders and shareholders, a bird's eye view of exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I'm pleased to do that. It's important to keep the shareholders and potential investors well informed. So that's also a very important part of my my job at managing the company. So so I was pleased to be with you today and have this opportunity.
Boy, it sounds great. Very, very interesting. And of course, that legal decision the end of this week will help you quite a bit too. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will have Pierre back on, if we get any decision that is, you have to also remember that there are restrictions on what can and cannot be said. But any updates that come along, we will have Pierre back and we will put that information out to you.
Yep, that sounds good, Charles. No doubt about it. Well, Pierre, thanks again. Boy, don't be a stranger. This sounds fascinating. And the one thing, as we head into our everybody with an electric car era, is the need for copper. Boy, it is.
And just so that everybody knows, we will upload this to a YouTube video and send Pierre the link to that, so you'll be able to find it on Deep South's website.
Yep, it'll be on WPSL TV on YouTube, and hopefully it will be this afternoon when Cliff gets that up. So that, yeah, it sounds good, and certainly, Pierre, you have our permission to put this video on your website if that's legal for you.
I will do so, and we will do that on our social media too.
Great.
Go.
Thanks, Pierre.
Thanks. You have a nice day, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And you, Greg?
All right. Boy, that's just a wonderful, wonderful guest, Charles. You hit a home run here. We got about 3 minutes left. What else is going on in the market?
Well, the market's up about 113. NASDAQ is up 9. Um, and the S&P is up 1274. Just so that you know, any new highs in the NASDAQ or the S&P on an intraday basis are new all-time highs. The one that's been lagging behind, the Russell 2000, which is small cap, actually is the leader today. It's up 16 or 0.75%. Yesterday, it was the leader. The day before, it was the leader. So, this is trickling down, to use the old Ronald Reagan mention. We are seeing a trickle down into the small caps. And even the Dow Jones transports are up just under 100, about 5/8% up. And as it relates to the futures, we have oil up a little, up about just a penny or so. Gold is down $20, so the dollar must be a bit stronger. And the copper is 427.50. That's up about a penny and a half. And my favorite, the nat gas, is trading right exactly at $4, and that's up about 8.25%.
Yeah.
So strong market.
Yep. And it was
Feels a little
fascinating.
tired to me, but it's still a strong market.
Yeah. And, very interesting, again, getting back to Pierre, talking about molybdenum. I have not heard that terminology since chemistry class in high school, but it's going to
Well,
be.
you know what they say, Greg, what's old is new.
That's it. You got that right. Hey, we'll talk to you next week. Okay.
Take it easy.
All right. Charles Moskowitz, the great Wize Oz, right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, talking the Treasure Coast, webcaster of the world. And again, the name of that company is deepsouthresources.com. Deepsouthresources.com. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, talking the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world on Alexa, Google Home, and tune in worldwide.